All right. Hey, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us for this ChangeNerd webcast. Today, we are speaking with Tammy Davis. She is the CEO and Chief Relationship Officer of Next Level Consulting Services. They're a winning partner in the ERP applications space. So Tammy is the perfect person to have this conversation with us today. We're talking about how to build your ERP team. So Tammy, thank you for being with us today.
Sure thing. It's a pleasure to connect with you to talk about my favorite subject, ERP implementations and teams.
I know. It's a beautiful thing. So Tammy, tell us a little bit about your background.
So, a little bit about me is that I kind of fell into this ERP space. When I was in college, actually about 9, I thought I was going to be an attorney. So, in college, I was on the path of law school. And after I graduated from law school, I moved to Michigan and got a temporary role as an assistant with the city of Detroit. Or my first Oracle ERP implementation. I didn't even know what ERP stood for at the time.
Yeah.
Then while I was on that engagement, was hired by Oracle, and they say, no pun intended, the rest is history. So once I joined Oracle, that's really when I sunk my teeth into, the ERP and system implementation world. So I started off as a business analyst, requirements management specialist, and then I moved into training, and then from there, formally moved into organizational change management. I've been in this space, oh my gosh, I joined Oracle in September of 1999. And while I've had other system implementations like Workday and also other cloud-based systems, Oracle's still my baby. I learned quite a bit, and
Yeah.
that's where I plan to stay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hmm.
So before we talk about specific teams, based on
Hmm.
your experience with working with different clients, why are they investing in an ERP system? What's that reason?
It really depends on the client, it depends on the industry. But at the end of the day, what I'm finding is the common theme is that they want some level of efficiency. They want some level of an increase in productivity. So they want to move away from time being wasted, for lack of a better word, that they have these legacy systems that don't talk to one another, that don't really have the level of collaboration that they need. So you don't know what HR is doing compared to payroll, compared to finance, procurement. So really wanting a level of efficiency, and I'm going to say productivity. That's the common theme across all clients, all industries, that in my experience
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now, as it pertains to building out that team for the ERP
Hmm.
implementation, when should a leader start thinking about that? When is that? What's that time frame?
Well, it depends on what side of the coin you're on. So are you asking from a system integrator standpoint, or are you asking from a client standpoint?
From a client standpoint.
So at the time in which you know you want to go down the path of getting an ERP and embarking on that transformation journey, then at that particular moment. So by the time you issue that RFP, you should already have an idea of who you want on that team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the very beginning.
From the very beginning. Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
That totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. Um, we can talk about roles or
Hmm. Hmm.
skill sets, but what are some of the core skill sets that an ERP team would have to be successful?
Oh boy, I would say the ability to communicate and understand their job roles. So remember how I said that your team on the client perspective should be selected before you issue that RFP?
Mhm.
That's pretty much going to be the same team that you're going to have through vendor presentation, through vendor selection, and you're going to be working with this team. They're going to morph into your project team. So you want really subject matter experts within the business that understand how to decipher and grasp the concepts that they're learning. So, the ability to learn new things quickly, the ability to be flexible and adaptable. Again, you get to be a subject matter expert of how you do your job. I think a lot of times, you know, clients on the project team get caught up in all the jargon, let's say that a system integrator might throw at them. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, as long as you know what you do in your business, you're an asset. Seriously, because they can really get tripped up, for lack of a better word. But
Yeah.
you know your job, and a lot of times when the client is selecting their team members, again, starting before the RFP is even released,
Yeah.
people have been in their roles. There's a tenure there. There's a level of longevity.
Yeah.
Know your business, communication, ability to adapt, be flexible,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
willing
No.
to learn new things.
No. That's actually a really good advice. So if you, so you're a client and
Hmm.
you have your team, what are the roles? Can we kind of go through what are some of the core roles with on the client side, and then what are some core roles that may be included with the system integrator?
Sure. So definitely first and foremost, you want to make sure that you have the roles of your executive sponsor.
Yep.
So who's going to serve as the governance, let's say checks and balances, who's going to really set the tone for your particular engagement.
Hmm.
So who's going to be responsible? From the executive sponsor, you then can start to form your steering committee, and that typically is led by the executive sponsor or a key, executive team member. So let's say your, vice presidents or maybe even a little bit senior. It really just depends on the industry. So like one of our clients is a municipality. So and each municipality is different. I'm finding because on one client who was the executive sponsor or on that steering committee was the mayor. But then another executive, sponsor on the committee was the deputy mayor. So it just really depends. So I
Yes.
would say the executive sponsor is key. Definitely your steering committee, absolutely your project managers.
Yep.
Now, if at all possible, just between those three roles, there's going to be a combination of duties, meaning that those who are the executive sponsor, you're still going to have your day-to-day jobs,
Yep.
in all honesty. But for your project manager, if the client can allocate a project manager 100%, that works very closely with the system integrator project manager, that would be great. That would be absolutely beneficial. I know I might be dreaming. That doesn't always happen, but that's
Yeah.
what I would recommend. So
Awesome.
I'm just starting from the top. So you have your project manager, then you'll have your different module leads. Depending upon what you're implementing, you should have someone responsible for that particular work area, that business process, that work stream.
Hmm.
And then you'll have individuals working within that work stream, that module underneath them. So that's the gist of it for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah. Now that makes sense. Makes sense. So when it comes to change management, what's your recommended approach? Should there be an OCM resource assigned to each module, or should there be um, OCM resources that are they're kind of working in a shared services format where they're supporting
Sure.
each module? I've seen both. I just want to
Me
get
too.
your perspective. Yeah. What do
Me
you? What do
too.
you?
I've seen both as well. And I'm going to tell you the positive of having the change, like a change resource per work stream. So on average, large ERP implementation, you're implementing no less than 5 or 6 modules. And I'm just talking from an Oracle perspective. You can even include Workday, even,
Yeah.
back then PeopleSoft, but at least 5 or 6 modules. The
Yep.
benefit of having an OCM resource per module or work stream is that they become subject matter experts. They know the stakeholders, they know the change impacts, they can, effectively communicate what needs to be communicated and what needs to be trained on. So and then they're also building the relationship with that work stream or module lead. um, there's a benefit to that because now you have a dedicated resource or resources in that particular area. On the flip side, the benefit of having, like you mentioned before, the shared services is that meaning you have an overarching change management team, or
Yeah.
you might have, Lord knows, I hope you have more than one resource on that
Hopefully.
team.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, fingers crossed,
Yeah.
budget is there. hope, is that now you're not only seeing the broader picture of the project as a whole, but now you have cross work stream collaboration. You cannot work in a silo. I
Hmm.
think that when you have individual change resources by module or by work
Yeah.
stream, you're
Yeah.
running the risk of people staying in their boxes and hardly coming out to play unless there's a mandate.
Y-
So kind of like both sides of the coin. If you do have, let's say, by individual module or work stream, and I know I'm using that word interchangeably, what happens is that you really need to have a strong OCM lead to manage all those resources to make sure there's cross collaboration and cross understanding between the teams.
Yeah. 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 So I know you have your steering committee, and then you have the project team and things
Hmm.
of that nature. But as far as feedback loops to make sure that information is flowing where it needs to flow between steering committee, project team, and maybe around the business as well, what are some recommended approaches?
Something that transcends like your typical project meetings or status reports. I would say, is there a way? I would recommend at least a quarterly, if not monthly, is preferred, some sort of town hall.
Yeah.
So that way individuals can understand what they're, and look, when you're doing an ERP, you can only work in a silo for so long because there's inputs and outputs that come from other modules that feed another module. So for example, there's no way that HR can, be in that box by themselves because there's clear information that needs to go to payroll in order for people to get paid on time.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I would recommend at least monthly cross module, cross work stream meetings that kind of are a little bit more than a status report. Like this is what we've been working on, but maybe this is what we've been working on. These are the issues that we have come across. This is how we can support one another, or this is how I need your help.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah.
Quarterly, but monthly for sure.
Monthly for sure. Okay, that makes sense. How have you seen, ERP teams really engage executive executives across the organization just to continue to have buy-in? What are some approaches for that? Because
Mm,
ERP implementations they last for a long time, or they tend to.
mhm.
So it's easy for the organization or even critical people involved to kind of focus on the next shiny object because
Mhm.
the system is so long lasting. So, how have you seen teams kind of sustain that engagement over time?
I don't think I've seen teams, in all honesty, be disengaged. In my experience, I've seen the executive committee, the project sponsors continue to drive that engagement, can really be the trendsetters with the buy-in because like in full disclosure, they have
Yeah,
a lot on the line. Like
yeah.
they don't have a choice for this to not work or
Not
not
work.
be
Yeah,
excellence, right?
yeah,
Or it not to meet their goals. So um, I'm really struggling to think of now when you get to the within the teams, that's a different story. But
mhm,
at that executive level, I've only seen them again be the trend centers of adoption and engagement and buy-in. But
yeah,
what I have also seen or what I have also been experienced with is supporting those executives in communicating and getting people to understand the vision and the goals, like constantly driving that. I know you might want to say it this way, but
mhm,
you're really not emphasizing the benefits. So why don't we tweak that message in this manner so it can resonate? So
yeah,
that's what I've, been my experience as a change lead is supporting individuals at that level with their messaging
yeah,
so they can continue to be trendsetters with buy-in.
yeah. No, that totally makes sense. With all of your years of experience with you and your team, what are some lessons learned or just common mistakes that teams should avoid when it comes to just working together to implement the ERP system?
I'm gonna try my best to keep this short.
Shit, that could
And
be
I
a
know I'm looking at
podcast
I'm like, I know
as
you
well.
only have 15 minutes. I'm going to be all over the board with this. So
Yeah.
those who
Okay.
are on the line, buckle up because it's going to be like a fire hose. So the first thing, and I'm going to speak from
Yeah.
many different aspects. So the first aspect I'm going to speak from is from a training standpoint.
Yep.
So you understand who needs to be trained. You've worked closely with the change management team. You know the change impacts. You now have a good grasp of those gotcha moments, meaning that what would really trip someone up about learning about this new product, this new system, this new way of how they're going to operate within their particular role. The number one lessons learned for training is do not solely focus on training people on the happy path. A lot of times people want to say, well, if we just focus on how everything is going to successfully be entered into the system, they're not going to have any problems. No, you've got to train people on those exceptions. You've got to train people on you've got to enhance or at least start to enhance their troubleshooting skills. And what better way to do that is we learn by making mistakes, right?
Yep.
So what better way than to give them exception process training? You've got to divert and stop painting the brush of the lilies, let's say, in the field, and give a little weed training. So give them that perspective of what can go wrong with the system as opposed to we're only going to focus on what's right with the system, because we want to build up their confidence. We want to build up, like I said, their troubleshooting ability, that I may not need to call the help desk, when I get this error message, that I'm not fearful with working in production. Oh my gosh, it's my first week working in this production, and I know these people need to get paid on time and it needs to be right. I'm at a standstill. Non-happy path training, exception process training
Yeah.
is number one. From a communication perspective, I would say get ahead of what's going to be the gotchas. So get ahead of those change impacts that are going to have the highest level of impact with your stakeholders. So communicate early, communicate often, be creative in the way that you communicate. It's okay for it to be repetitive, and we also want to emphasize the benefits. Again, the whole what's in it for me, what's
Yeah.
in it for them. You're asking me to do this new task in this role. Why? What is it going to buy me? So I think a lot of times people tend to want to focus on that ERP systems are an enhancement to roles. They're not a replacement. So you just really need to focus on those enhancements. Like I said, I'm going to be more efficient. I'm going to have more time. My productivity is going to increase. So I now can focus on the things that matter most in my role.
Yeah.
I would say that would be huge. Those are oh my gosh, take your time when you're trying to find out who is going to be affected by the system. So the whole like stakeholder analysis, like who's going to be impacted. And I'm talking about the gamut, those who just need to be made aware of something, all the way to those who really need to understand and be committed to using, the systems or the modules within the ERP project. That is key as well. I think a lot of times clients just want to rush to communications and want to rush to training. There's some work that we need to do. And there's nothing worse than 2 to 3 weeks before training and you found out that you've missed someone.
Wow.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with a project that maybe is already, I don't know, 9 months in, depending upon what type of system you're in, 8 months in.
Yeah.
That can be devastating. Those are some like huge gotchas that come
Yeah.
top of mind.
No, Tammy, listen, you make a lot of sense. Everything you're saying, for anyone watching this video now or even after and they see the recording, I think they're going to find value in your suggestion. So absolutely. Tell us about your consulting firm.
Oh, next level. No, started next level in 2006. And the reason why I say all next level is the reason why I started it. In full disclosure, I started the company when I was 7 months pregnant.
Awesome.
We
Yeah.
were already, Next Level was actually our fourth stream of revenue.
Hmm.
So we had real estate, we had construction, we had a frozen dessert concept. But all along, I had been working, like I said, Oracle, and then other, smaller practices, and then I went back to larger. Um, there was always a need for me to it was always a need for me to understand that things could be done better
Yeah.
and differently.
Hmm.
So as I was, 7 months pregnant, I had already had a 2-year-old son at the time, and I said, I think I want to start this. And my husband's like, well, you can always start it and then go back. Because at the time I was working with a software company that
Yep.
they specialize in requirements management. So they were building different websites and platforms, and my focus was requirements manager.
Yeah.
And I said, I can do this. I can do this. I believe I can. So you say 13 years later, and here we are. And again, our clients definitely range from those larger ERP implementations. Like I said, I mean, the latest client that we have is going to be about 1 million end users.
Yeah.
They're
Wow.
implementing Oracle Cloud, as I think is a total of 9 modules, all the way to our smaller clients that, let's say, maybe have 35,000 clients with, a small population,
Yeah.
50,000 of retirees. So we run the gamut as far as industry, as far as end user size. But at the end of the day, we love what we do. There's a core 10 of us. I've worked with these individuals over the years, and it's nothing. We're like family. And I know that might sound so cliche, but when
No,
you've
I
worked
get it. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
there's a trust factor. Like
Yes.
especially when you're dealing with, change management and training.
Hmm.
Um, to me, I like to focus on, um, in all honesty, the behavioral, which of course lends to the emotional piece. So
Yeah.
our approach tends to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like I cringe at the thought when we're approaching a new client and they're like, well, what methodology are you going to bring? Why
Yeah.
are you talking to us about methodology?
Yeah.
We need to understand your culture. We need to understand your organization because, again, our approaches are specific to our clients' needs. While we do have a methodology internal, yes, Next Level has Relate. That's our,
Yeah.
proprietary methodology.
Yeah.
All of that in our methodology may not work with a
E-
particular client.
Exactly.
So, like I said, I love it. Been around for quite some time, and love what's coming on the horizon.
That's good. That's good. Tammy, thank you so much. Look, we're gonna head to closing this out. Tammy, thank you for taking time out your schedule to have this conversation. I
Been
love your
awesome.
energy. Um,
Thank you.
the suggestions and advice you gave over the last 20 minutes are so valuable. So I really appreciate that. And for those of you who are on the call, thank you for taking time out your schedules to join us. This concludes the webcast.